Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the House of Kayfabe, and I am here with Stephen Barker and Stephen P. New, and we are talking about something that I never really wanted to talk about. And you know what? What we're about to talk about, actually, we've all known about for years. I mean, the genetic jackhammer's been promoting this shit. I've seen Vince McMahon's ass more times than I've seen my own. I think I've seen him. I think I think I seen a meme that said that this week. But yeah, I mean, we've kind of known who Vince McMahon was for a whole long time, but we live in a world with heels and faces, and for some reason, heels can't be heels anymore.
They can't be in real life when you got that cheddar to pay your women off, man. Here's the thing. Can somebody tell Vince McMahon that you can fuck outside the company? Like, just somebody put Tinder on that old man's phone and we wouldn't be here. Because now here we are as pro wrestling fans. And once again, excuse me, it's on the front page of the news, and wrestling never gets to be on the front page of the news for, excuse me, was it Shad Gaspard that like saved the kid?
Yeah, drowned. Saving
can we have more of those? No, it's got to be Vince McMahon is an alleged, we're going to say alleged today a lot, probably, Steve knew. He's taught us well here at the House of Kayfabe. Allegedly a serial, like, sex creep, I guess. Like, and Steve knew, what do you think about this? It was always going to have to be this way. It was going to always end this way.
Well, I think I have an idea. Because if you listen to Cornette, Pritchard, and others speak, Vince McMahon loves the WWE more than he loves anything else in the world.
His wife.
And he worked at WWE all the time. So I think he wasn't going to take 2 hours out of the day, hop in the limo, get driven down to the Bada Bing, get service, get driven back to the WWE headquarters. I mean, how easy would that have been? You have a personal assistant who lines all of that stuff up for you if you're Vince McMahon and you're a billionaire.
There's got to be a billionaire Tinder, right? How is there not a billionaire Tinder?
Derek Jones has joined the conversation. Welcome to the House of Kayfabe, Derek. You are late.
Sorry, guys.
Derek Jones is going to come in here and talk about how my promoter does not sex creep on the office workers. That's why Derek Jones is here today, to talk about
I don't know,
the Boy Scout that is Tony Khan.
I wouldn't go that far. Those hugs looked really, really close. They were interesting hugs, to say the very least.
But they were at least up at shoulder level. I mean, look when Tony Khan recreates some of those Mr. McMahon moments, like with Trish Stratus, when he has Trish Stratus hike him a football, I'll get worried about Tony Khan. Right?
Nah, he's too marky. He's only going to just hug the wrestlers that he's paid for, right, Derek Jones?
I love it.
All right, so the point of this this conversation was for the three of us to get together with Stephen P. New and ask him the questions that everybody wants to know that's legal. And I'm going to start because I understand what this lawsuit's about. I understand that he paid company cash to some ladies that he wanted to hide his sexual discretions with. He got NDAs signed. And my question, like, you just called him a creep, Stephen Barker. You just called him a creep earlier when we were talking, getting ready for this. You actually referred to him as a predator.
I mean, it's predator-ish.
And I'm over here like, okay, I get it. He spent $300,000 on these ladies. Is that a piece? Is each one of them got like $300,000?
No, millions.
No, it's $300,000 for the paralegal, who later got $3 million and signed an NDA. She was on the company payroll. It's a total of $12 million for all these other women over like a 15-year span of time. 17, I guess, going back to 05.
And how long has the WWE been publicly traded?
Since 02?
Yeah, 02, right after
2002.
WCW.
Okay, so this entire time that we're talking about,
right,
WWE was a publicly traded company.
Yeah, from 2005 to present, and the total amount of money is 12 million for these new women plus the 3 for the paralegal under NDAs.
Okay, and that's where the issue is. Money paid out, $12 million paid out of the company that's publicly traded. Therefore, there's an issue. Now, if he would have paid this money out of his pocket, would there be an issue?
Yeah, yes. And you got to go back to a law school course that I had called Business Organizations. And in that course, you learn how corporations operate, both private corporations and publicly traded corporations. And majority shareholders like Vince McMahon, who controls 80% of the shares in WWE, can't just run over the other 20% in a publicly traded corporation. Those majority shareholders owe fiduciary duties to the minority shareholders, and the board of directors owe fiduciary duties to all shareholders. And so if this publicly traded company is being run like a good old boys club and women are being passed around and they're violating their own sexual harassment policies, which they have to have, then that's the breaches of fiduciary duty that are going to make way for a lawsuit, irrespective of did the company money pay for it or did McMahon pay for it? Were these NDAs, were these settled? Because in the Christy Hemme instance, my understanding was she was fired in 2005, and that's who everybody believes is the subject of the 2005 firing, the 2005 BJ incident. And my understanding is she didn't reach a settlement with McMahon until 2018.
So let's talk about that, because I've got the list. So we have 4 non-workers and what looks to be a worker, right? A wrestler. And the women who were released in 2005, which has to be one of them, because the investigation that's being done to
there's only one wrestling female.
Yes.
Right. The rest of them
office workers and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're looking. So one of these is the one, and Derek being the youngest one, I would like to know if you even know who these women are. I know you're gonna know a few of them. Molly Holly. It's not Molly Holly. No, she's too all-American apple pie. It ain't Molly Holly. I love Molly Holly. I am a Molly Holly mark.
And think about it, she went into the Hall of Fame within the last year or two. Here.
Right. We have Ivory. I think Ivory might punch Vince McMahon. She's hard.
No, it wouldn't be Ivory. No.
We have Dawn Marie.
Now. What makes me think it's not Dawn Marie? What makes me think it's not Dawn Marie is because I honestly like to believe that Dawn Marie is from ECW, and if she took a deal like that, she'd stick to it.
I feel like if it was Dawn Marie, she would still be getting paid small amounts of money just to not say anything and be okay with it.
If it was Dawn Marie, I think she'd still be there. Right.
And
now.
she would probably still be in a relationship with Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
So you're saying
actually, if it was Dawn Marie, I will say if it was Dawn Marie, Vince McMahon and Linda McMahon would be divorced now, and Dawn Marie would be Dawn Marie McMahon.
So you're saying so far Dawn Marie's the best worker that I've mentioned.
I don't think Dawn Marie is taking this one to court. If it was her, she would have a completely different angle on this.
So then the next one would be Joy Giovanni, who I do not know. And I wonder if the human wrestling encyclopedia, Derek Jones, knows who Joy Giovanni is.
I don't know if I know who.
This is Diva Search
Days.
I do. This is Diva Search Days.
I think I can picture her with some long dark hair.
You know what we're doing right now is we're naming the one person that if it's her, it's going to be a big disappointment for guys like us who like to talk about these things. We won't know anything about her. We won't. So let's really hope it's not Joy Giovanni.
Then the only other female wrestler worker that was released in 2005, which has been cited, Christy Hemme, and brother Adam, who's not here today, said it best. She kind of seems like Vince's type. Let's be honest.
She's definitely Vince's type. She's definitely anybody's type. And her leaving the WWE the way she did was just kind of weird. And no one really talked about it. She didn't talk about it. You know, when people get released, they usually do the podcast realm and they do all types of different things. put out statements. We didn't get any of that from Christy Hemme. So
Now, I know that Derek Jones, of course, came to wrestling, from what I understand so far, through TNA. When I say Christy Hemme, do you immediately think TNA?
Me?
Yeah. She was a TNA ring announcer.
Yeah. No, I'm fully aware who she is and where she has worked and what she's done. But I mean, I don't think of Christy Hemme as a worker, period. When I
Oh, well, she wasn't a worker. She was in a wrestling ring in wrestling matches.
Yeah, she did Playboy, and she's married to Mike Bennett. Like she's
not married to Mike Bennett.
No, that's wrong redhead. Wrong redhead.
No.
Yep, wrong redhead.
You got to mix up with Maria Kanellis.
Yeah. And that's actually in his defense. You can make that mistake.
You could, and they look similar. But Christy Hemme was the ring announcer for TNA for
one of the early WWE crossovers into Playboy after Sable. So, Steve, let's get back to the law thing. I want to ask you this: if this wasn't a publicly traded company, this is a non-starter? Question mark?
No, not really, because even in a private corporation, majority shareholders can't just run over minority shareholders.
But if it's a private, there's no shareholders.
Well, yeah, there are.
Wait, what?
In my law firm, there are shareholders.
Oh, I see. But were there those kind of shareholders when it was a private company that wasn't named McMahon?
No. Not just anybody could buy shares of New Taylor and Associates, and not just anybody could buy shares of WWF stock up until 2002. Now you can take your phone out, you can buy shares anytime you want. So it's slightly different, but not really. And that's not what all of this hinges on, public versus private or anything else like that. It really, the way that I'm reading what that law firm that's researching and investigating this is looking for is breach of fiduciary duty. And I think they're trying to assemble enough shareholders of various kinds to say, look, this place was just being run like Animal House. And as a result of that, shareholders have suffered damages.
Well, okay, let me ask a question. I think that might even be Resner's. Are they doing this, the minority shareholders, are they doing this out of some sort of like moral opportunity? Or are they doing it because they just want this guy out?
Partially both, I think. I think I didn't know this until about an hour and a half ago, and figured out the net worth of WWE in 2018 going into 2019 was $7 billion. And the net worth of WWE right now is 5.7.
What?
So that's 1.3 billion difference. If I'm representing those minority shareholders, then I'm trying to say that some part, if not all, of that 1.3 billion in fall off is because McMahon is running it. And here's the other angle. He's got his mind on blowjobs instead of running the company. That's the angle for this case.
Yeah, but that's an angle with every man. That's not fair. I'm thinking about a blowjob right now.
Well, you may be.
And now Derek is too.
But you're not running a multi-billion-dollar entertainment and sports conglomerate. So, I mean, when you do that and you put yourself in that position, you got to be sharp and you got to be on. And I think that's the best angle in the case.
So that's interesting. So so they're going to use his, we'll say, alleged indiscretions right now.
Alleged indiscretions.
To punish him for what, 1.x amount of $1 billion lost in the company. So my question would be, what if they were worth $12 billion? Would they be saying shit right now?
Well, and the answer to that question is no. And it may still be tough for them to lay this 1.3 billion in difference in the company from 19 to 22 at Vince's door. I mean, you've had a pandemic during that time. You've got all kinds of things. So I think, and I stand by what I said a few days ago, and that you guys are going to hear on another podcast, which is I think damages are next to impossible to prove here because McMahon is a workaholic. He lives, eats, sleeps, breathes, bleeds WWE. And I think if the route these lawyers are going to try and take is the company was poorly run, well, the balance sheet doesn't really show that.
But like, how can you prove that it was badly run because he was fucking around in the office?
Well, just lack of focus, or you bring in some expert witness who looks at what his daily schedule was. You got to really get into the weeds, do a bunch of depositions. And if it looks like that this is just a ship adrift with, nobody at the captain's helm, then you bring in expert witnesses and say, look, compare WWE to some other similar entertainment conglomerate. And this is what CEO, whoever, does and how he runs it. Compare that versus, McMahon over here playing grab ass.
You could say Dana White's not playing grab ass with the steno pool.
That's exactly right.
Basically.
Can you truly kick this man out of his company? I mean, can
That's a good
McMahon
question.
truly be removed from the WWE over this?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. The board would have the ability, he's out as chairman of the board, whatever position he had there. He still has a 42% ownership interest in the company, which translates to 80% because of Class A versus Class B stock. And so, that's a good question, is whether or not any act of misconduct, even if it proven or some, as Barker just so eloquently put it, playing grab ass in a steno pool instead of, making sure that the company's being run appropriately. You get to strip him of that, 80% control of the company. I don't know.
How can I ask
to a judge and a jury? Probably.
How can I ask this without coming off like a misogynist shithead?
Oh, well, go ahead.
If these women, let's just assume, and Resner, I'm going to help you out here because I'm going to do it and you ain't going to have to.
Okay.
Let's just assume that these women, at their own free will, decided to partake in these activities. And because Vince McMahon is...
What happened? We're not hearing that he raped anybody.
We are hearing about unsolicited pics. There is some unsolicited dick pics. And dudes, quit that. Quit it. Nobody wants to see that.
How
what
weird
the fuck?
Is it that Vince McMahon does that?
Who let the 80-year-old man know that dick pics were a thing?
Yeah, and it just seems really strange that a billionaire would be like, you know what? I'm going to send a picture of my dick. This couldn't go wrong.
This is fine.
This is going to be great.
I'm a billionaire. There's nothing I have to lose by sending this dick pic. But my question
why is that dick pic not all over the internet already?
It's going to be, dude, 4chan's on it. It's going to be there.
I'm saying Brad Pitt, he got his, he got his time in the sun, and
brother Davey Richards, his got put out there.
Yes.
Why is Vince McMahon's dick not on the internet already?
It's coming. The genetic jackhammer. We're going to see. We're going to get about to fucking find out.
And one more question about dick pics, just before we move on. If you're an 80-year-old man, what makes you think? I mean, I get it. Like, if you're just if you're a 25-year-old man, a dick pic's not going to really get you anywhere. But if you're an 80-year-old man and you are sending your wrinkled schlong pics to some chick, how do you feel like that's going to get you over in the sex game?
There's got to be gray.
There's got anything like that.
There's got to be gray hair involved. There's no way that there's not gray hair involved. What he should have done was just send text pictures of his bank account.
Looks like raisins. I still got the grapefruits.
Like, he should have just sent like bank statements. Like, here. Let's do this.
Right.
Like, well, that's way better than a dick pic. So
all
my
right,
question is,
Parker,
so Steve knew if these women,
was,
if they said, hey, we're going to fuck this old man, and then the old man who obviously is a private guy, we don't know anything. That's one of the biggest reasons of Bruce Pritchard and Jim Cornette, well, less Jim Cornette, but more Bruce Pritchard, is as popular as he is because he's the only person that's telling stories about this mysterious weirdo behind the curtain. Mr. The Wizard of Oz. He's the only one telling the stories. That's the only reason that Bruce Pritchard's big.
Here's my answer to that question, Barker. Number one, it's not lawsuits by those ladies again. My understanding is that whatever issue they had, whether it was Christy Hemme from 2005 or the paralegal or the whatever, my understanding is that stuff's resolved. It's buttoned up with an NDA. These aren't lawsuits by those individuals. So we're not relitigating lawsuits by those individuals. What has come to light is that the board, people in charge, minority shareholders, perhaps other majority Class A stock shareholders didn't know about any of this. So,
but did they need to?
Yes, it was. Yeah, I believe that once it became people associated with WWE, that would have to be disclosed in the 10K to the Securities Exchange Commission. It would have to be explained internally, to everybody who has an interest in WWE. So that's what the lawsuits are. It has nothing to do with consent or lack of consent or anything. I mean, this is a corporate type lawsuit.
This isn't criminal at all. This isn't going to be criminal.
Well, I mean, I doubt. To my knowledge, other than the referee from '85, none of the other ladies have said that this was, not consensual. And if it turns out being, and again, if it turns out being Christy Hemme, here's where you get into some perhaps illegality. You get into some Harvey Weinstein type stuff of, blow me and you move up the women's rankings, or don't, and you get sent back to OVW and you get fired within a week of moving to Louisville, Kentucky, and going back to OVW. And what that represents is that power disparity. If the guy with the casting couch has the ability to cast you in the movie role and he can give you the lead, or, he can give you girl next door that doesn't have any lines in the movie. So that's where that power imbalance comes into. And I think the power imbalance, as opposed to consensual versus non-consensual, is going to come into what the board and others in the corporation want to know.
Derek, you got anything for the counselor? Oh, Derek is like that.
We're talking about this. You guys started off as an angle, like we said, as consent versus non-consent, and then Steve talked about it a little bit when we're talking about, like, when they look at it, did his actions cost the company money? Is essentially what we're looking at. But you said we went through a pandemic and they still did okay, but I can't compare it to another entertainment value company, but my Emperor that Barker always speaks of, that I work for, that buys me nice things. We're a very large company. We just went through the same pandemic, and our company, as well as WWE, is product based essentially, and we come out with an increase. So
right.
It's not the same, but people were still out there and people were still spending money. You can't blame the pandemic for their loss. So
no. You totally can blame the pandemic. Now, if the pandemic's to blame, that's a whole other thing. But you can definitely blame the pandemic.
Right. You can place blame on the pandemic. Okay.
Yeah, but live events and things are different than us coming to Walmart. Walmart and Lowe's stayed open, and their stock prices reflect that, because all of us needed household goods and food and that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Right. But you also could have bought those things online as well as watched WWE online. You could have sunk your money into it another way, but they didn't.
I think Derek, what Derek's trying to say is, like, Vince McMahon's at fault for a huge decrease in income through bad wrestling. Is that what you're trying to say, Derek Jones?
Well, no, had he been more focused where he should have been, they might not have lost anything.
Well, you make, that's the argument that the plaintiff's counsel is going to make here. But Derek, if you put it in terms of Walmart or a retail store or something like that, if the store manager tells one of the ladies that runs a cash register, I'll give you more hours in a week if you'll blow me in the stock room back in the back of the store. I mean, that's bad news right there. You know, you can't do that. There's a power imbalance there. Same thing with McMahon and one of the ladies on the roster. You know, blow me and I'll push you to the Divas Championship, for instance. You know, you don't, and I'm really going to punish you. That's going to be an interesting part to me as a lawyer. That's going to be an interesting part to watch this unfold, because if you remember the old Demi Moore, Michael, what's his name, Romancing the Stone?
Oh, Michael Douglas.
Michael Douglas, Demi Moore disclosure, based on the Michael Crichton book back in the early 90s. They said sexual harassment isn't about sex, it's about power. And so it's going to be interesting. And nobody in WWE has ever had as much power as Vince McMahon. So that's
no one in the wrestling business, period.
Right.
So we are talking about the legal aspects of the Vince McMahon situation. And I think that it's only common practice here for us to also talk about the possible conspiracy that could be going on here. And so I'm thinking, you know, maybe I'm just too much of a wrestling fan here.
Thinking.
I'm thinking. And well,
that's a good one. That's good.
So what I'm thinking is, Stephanie McMahon rolled out before this happened. She knew this was about to happen. Triple H all of a sudden is back. He's back and he's running.
Well, he rolled out on a medical as well.
Yeah, he sure did. And it makes you think, like, are they to the point where they're like, we need this old man gone too?
I have a piece of evidence, counselor. It's on one of those millions of documentaries that's on the network, and who knows if it's made it to the Peacock yet. But it was specifically them talking about the steroid scandal. And Stephanie is in an interview and she's talking about it. And she said that her dad came to her and was like, this is about to happen. This is going to happen. You're going to have to deal with this. And Stephanie in this interview says, his own fucking daughter says, I kind of knew what to expect because my dad's not a moral man. She says that in a documentary way long ago. It's something I watched like 10 years ago or however long ago. She knows that her dad's fucked up. I mean, like, think about it. She's the daughter. She has a mom. You know what I mean? Like, let's just go down to not wrestling and anything else. Like, here's a daughter being like, my dad is fucking everybody but my mother. So, dude, the conspiracy could be that, like, Stephanie Mann's like, man, fuck you, dad. That's fucked up.
And also, we haven't even talked about the Linda McMahon aspect of this.
They don't live together.
But no, Linda lives in Florida, and the big question is going to be, I keep reading, and I haven't peeled back the 10K to find out how many shares Linda got.
That's a good question. Nobody's talked about
how many shares has Linda got? You know, I mean, she's the most attractive lady in Boca right about now.
Well, I know for a fact that she had to sign away because she was part of the last administration.
Wait, she's in Boca?
She's close.
She's Boca?
Somewhere in South Florida.
I wonder if she needs a
probably in West Palm.
I wonder if she needs a solar system.
Get the fuck out of here. Look at this worker. Look at Resner always working.
Contact this lady.
Now that information is out there, Steve knew, because I know again she was like the head of like Small Business Administration, which is fucking hilarious that she was the Small Business Administration head because her business destroyed every small business wrestling crew in the whole fucking country. But I know
if that's not Trumpian, I don't know what.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And like, I know for a fact that she had to sign away her rights or what have you to that for that X amount of time.
Well, it was the same as like Cheney with Halliburton. They just had to kind of create that trust
Mhm.
where she couldn't even inadvertently dabble in WWE stuff when she was in the Trump administration. So
Right. So yeah, dude, I like this conspiracy theory. I think Stephanie, Adam Harris, he posted a really good picture. It was a picture from a WWF magazine, and it was like Vince. It was Stephanie, and maybe she was like holding a picture of Vince and ripping it or something, and was like, coming for the throne or whatever.
Well, I tell you what, somebody needs to do. Some wrestling nerd with way too much time on their hands needs to go back through all of the angles that had the McMahon family in the early 2000s with Linda in the wheelchair.
Oh, when they got her drugged up Linda,
and kissing Trish Stratus in front of a drugged up Linda McMahon, and all of the stuff with Stephanie and Shane. Because if all of that stuff starts to be real life, and there's a real life play by Stephanie and Hunter for the entirety of this company, and let's say McMahon won't let it go, and they're going to try to through court rip it out of his hands. That'll be compelling TV.
It sure will. This is something that we never thought we were going to see. We were never going to actually see this be real. But one thing I have to ask is, if you've got females who had sex with Vince McMahon, whether it be oral or vaginal or however they had sex with Vince McMahon,
all the variants,
and they got paid money to do so, what is the difference in all the men he paid to kiss his ass on national television?
One was in the sense of an entertainment comedy or TV show.
Oh,
like
someone was entertained by the other as well.
Don Draper really didn't fuck all those chicks in Mad Men, so you would say that this would be in the sense of the show.
But to quote Samuel L. Jackson from Pulp Fiction, rubbing a woman's feet and sticking your tongue in the holies, ain't even in the same ballpark.
It's not even the same sport.
So
joining the Vince McMahon Kiss My Ass Club and going down on him in his office ain't even in the same ballpark.
Get him, Derek.
I'm just saying. I mean, it could be brought up anyway. Derek, what?
So a lot of we talked about this happening in like 2005, right? Some of it.
The Hemi incident, allegedly, yes.
Correct. Wasn't Linda setting as CEO at that time? So wouldn't he be able to just say, hey, this was hers during this time frame? Because like mid-90s to 2008, 2009, wasn't she actually setting as CEO of WWE?
I believe so.
Holy shit.
What if he just throws her under the bus and says, I didn't do any of this. She made those NDAs and she paid those bitches.
Or even worse than that, I use my wife as a flak jacket so I can fuck the steno pool. Oh my God. Dude, is it like, can you be a billionaire and be a moral person? Is that possible?
Leadership knew about it. Linda's been aware of all this for 40 years.
I didn't even think about that. She was the CEO for a long time.
Because she was president of WWE, just president like late 80s, early into the 90s, and then actually set as CEO sometime mid-90. I don't know when it was, but mid-90 to, the end of 2010, 29, 28, something like that. She set as CEO in the board.
Wow. That's mind-blowing. Derek, I've been doing a lot of research over the last couple of days and nobody has brought that up yet. He might be able to dodge that Christy Hemme bullet on that, because probably he was like, had some other smaller job underneath CEO and just like, obviously head of creative.
I was going to say, he's probably just head of creative at the time, bringing in more money than the CEO just because he, it's him. But that's all he's got to say is at the time, I wasn't chairman of the board. I was an office worker, just like they were.
I was just an everyday Joe.
And my wife paid them to keep her name out of the news.
Oh my God.
Wow.
You're welcome, Vince.
Yeah, you're welcome, Vince McMahon. We just gave you your
Steve New's going to hire Derek Jones for New Law and Associates. Holy shit.
Wow. So we have went over a lot here talking about Vince McMahon. The question is, will he not be a part of the WWE soon? Do you think that they can push Vince McMahon out of his own company? My vote is no, they cannot. And Vince McMahon is uncancelable. But that's just what I believe. What do you think, Steve Barker?
I think that I believed like you after the first one. I think the first one, because we know for a fact that like rich, powerful people use NDAs. If you're a baseball fan, we know for a fact that Derek Jeter, when he brought you home, when he was New York's most eligible bachelor, you signed an NDA, you got to play with the shortstop, and then you left with a gift basket. We know that's a thing that happened, right? This is not, in the grand scheme of things, Steve knew at this level, and it's hard for plebs like us to think like this. But in that stratosphere of wealth, NDAs for sex isn't that uncommon, right?
Right.
It's not that big a deal.
Right.
I was like, the first one, I was like, dude, it's fucking Vince McMahon. He's fucking bulletproof. He's Bill Clinton. This motherfucker can get through anything. Then the next dump. And here's the thing. There's going to be another dump.
Yeah.
This ain't over. And the reason why I think you're wrong, Brian, is we have far too many TikTok feminist activists out there. And when they get hold of this, and when you start seeing a bunch of protesting outside of WWE shows that this place is ran by a sex creep, that's when he's going to get canceled. I always thought that he was uncancelable.
Here's the thing is,
but I don't think he is.
Anyone gives a shit about protesters being outside? I mean, I get it. Maybe the shareholders do, but the fans aren't going to.
But we're not talking about the fans. I'm talking about people who read HuffPost. I'm talking about people who read Daily Cause.
Here's the question. The Rock is scheduled to have a meeting with McMahon, and this is going to be your bellwether. This is going to be your bellwether. If The Rock and John Cena stop associating with WWE, and you start to see that WWE stock price go down, because you're right, Resner. The average everyday wrestling fan probably couldn't give two shits. We've seen a whole lot more. We've seen Jimmy Snuka, Chris Benoit. There ain't a whole lot you can shock a 40-year wrestling fan with, all right?
And you hear those pops. When Vince McMahon comes out, you hear the pop. People,
because wrestling fans are dicks, man.
Because wrestling fans are idiots. Yes, we are. But it will matter to the feminists. It will matter to guys that are trying to have a mainstream connection outside of WWE and professional wrestling. And then the other people who are going to be mad is it's not just it's not just the ones who want to sue, but if that WWE stock price keeps dipping, and it's a direct correlation to these McMahon allegations, and more keeps coming out and more keeps going out, he's not going to be able to withstand that type of pressure.
Well,
go ahead, Derek.
I think something weird about what you're talking about is how Vince McMahon acted when John Cena came back. The night or the week before he comes out and he specifically announces that John Cena is going to be there. They didn't announce it on the show. He announced it. And then he was out there to introduce John Cena and make sure that he connected himself to John Cena, who is a public figure who should not be connected with a sexual predator, as you called him, Barker.
I said predatorish.
Okay.
Predatorish.
But now, if people start to distance themselves, though, Resner, if Rock starts to put distance between himself and McMahon, and Cena starts to put distance, and Stone Cold, for instance, starts to put distance, that's all you'll need to know.
Oh man, can you imagine if Hulk Hogan refuses to talk to him anymore?
That would be fucking hilarious. Give me a break. Eric Jones, what were you trying to say?
All right, so I've got two things to go in on everything you guys were just talking about. Well, one from earlier and one from now. So the first thing, Steve, with an NDA, they're typically time framed, right? Whether it be a year or 5 years or 10 years or whatever it may be.
I mean, they can be in perpetuity.
Okay. So, and that's kind of what I was going to ask about, if do they have to have a time frame on them, or can they be indefinite?
They can be indefinite.
Okay. So is he smart enough to do that?
Of course.
McDevitt is.
Yeah, he has the Stone Cold Steve Austin, Rock, and Undertaker of defense lawyers in his corner.
Just wheels are turning. Somebody might have slipped up and said, it's only 5 years. You'll be gone by then anyway. Who knows? The second thing, you're talking about these female protesters. Why do you think they put Stephanie McMahon at the front of the company after she left? Because they want that feminine viewpoint of, you're a feminist company. Well, how are you going to say that? Look at our CEO right now.
That's a smart move. Wow. Shit.
Yeah. And the other part of that too, that I think Stephanie can use, and Derek, I want you to tell me if you agree with this. There are a whole lot of ladies who have had their careers elevated who didn't sleep with McMahon. You've got Charlotte, Becky, Rhea Ripley, Ronda Rousey, and Bailey, Sasha, all of them. It'll be really interesting.
100% sure that none of those women slept with Vince McMahon. I don't.
Fair point.
We are.
Fair point.
I don't believe we are, and I wonder specifically about Sasha, simply because, and I don't want to say, oh, Sasha banged an old man. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it's kind of weird that she completely walked out on her job.
Yeah, but that could just be, man, I don't think it's that weird. And we need to do a video on that soon. And Derek needs to go point on that, because I think that she's just a real wrestling fucking person, and she don't think that she's being presented correctly. I think my
point is, they will line up any woman who Vince didn't, Nikki ASH, or, any woman Vince didn't.
You think Vince gave it to Dewdrop?
Right. Well, and along those same lines, that Nia Jax is going to be one of the witnesses for the plaintiffs there. He never hit on me.
That's why House of Kayfabe is the best fucking wrestling podcast on the planet, right there. Oh my!
Just saying.
Holy shit. Okay, so okay, so
it'd be funny if Dewdrop came out as
Dewdrop just came out. It's like, I put it on him, son. I took that genetic jackhammer like a champ.
There you go.
Oh my God. Okay, so I used to watch a wrestling show called Total Divas, and my wife was in my dating phase, and we were watching it, and she's like, what the fuck are you doing watching this? It's like, it's a wrestling show, honey. It's like, this isn't a wrestling show, and it's not.
Not really.
It's not.
I couldn't watch it. I watch everything wrestling, and I could not watch Total Divas.
Yeah,
I could.
Look, man, Daniel Bryan was backstage, and you got to see him chopping with John Cena. It was a decent show. My point being that if you watched it, that there are they covered their bases on the diversity, because there are, like we were just talking about, female wrestlers. There's just as many females backstage in the front office. They, what Steve New was saying, they could say like, look, the assistant to John Laurinaitis or whatever is a female. There's a lot of females backstage. This is not it's not just like when Steve said earlier, boys school or whatever, old boys club. It's not like that anymore. It is It is in every way a modern run corporation.
And to tie with what Derek is saying, I think that Stephanie will be the one to try to lead that and then look, we've let women co-main event WrestleMania in the last few years, and we've really tried to get away from the divas type part, and that these are equal athletes with our male superstars. So it's going to be interesting to see how Stephanie tries to, lead that spin of all of this, and who lines up. Interestingly, Natalia was quoted this week of saying, I just want to please everyone, and most of all, Mr. McMahon.
Oh no, Steve News completely
help. Every time that a mic gets put in front of her face, she can't help but step in shit. Every single time.
Yeah. Yeah, that was Natty's quote this week.
Dude, that channel that she has with like that her sister is fucking creepy, dude. Her sister's super hot. Her sister is the girl that dated Mauro Ranallo back when he was a worker up in Canada. She's in if you've ever watched that documentary, it's really good. It's called the rock and roll bipolar rock and roller, and it's about Mauro Ranallo, who I love. I'm a UFC pride mark. I love him. Man, she's super hot, but man, that channel is super incesty and gross. It's a black eye on wrestling. Like, it's fucking disgusting.
Well,
like, there's one scene.
Ronda Rousey was shit talking her over that.
She should, because it's fucking weird. It's fucking weird. Two sisters are like being all sexy and like touching and shit. It's fucking weird, man. Look, we're from West Virginia and we don't approve of that kind of shit.
Make us look decent.
But here's another law. Go ahead.
You think Natty Neidhart would do a channel with Dewdrop? I mean,
she's an excellent worker, Brian. She's the Yokozuna of the female fucking front. So Steve knew. Here's another law question: if these women with these NDAs, and man, I hope I'm not making too much light of this because I know it's a serious subject. But if these women who have this NDA who got like $3 million, and if their name comes out, do they have to give the money back?
But only if they disclose. Now, and that's a good question. If they were telling someone in real time this stuff was going on, oh my goodness, I'm a paralegal at WWE and I'm having sex with the boss, and they tell their friend over drinks in the evening, and then 2 years later she signs an NDA, and the friend that she was having drinks with 2 years earlier says, I don't know anything about the NDA or anything like that, but 2 years ago so-and-so was telling me she was having sex with Vince McMahon. That's not a violation of the NDA. It's the person who's signatory to the NDA who cannot violate the terms, who can't disclose it except to an accountant or their lawyer.
Isn't that an NDA workaround though? So if you've signed it, you could just like tell somebody, and then they can go.
No, you gotta tell them after you sign it. You can't tell anybody.
Right, you gotta tell them previously.
Tell anybody now, but if you've told them previously what was going on that became the subject matter that was covered by the NDA, then that's not a violation by that person, though.
Now, if they
because you told them before they signed the NDA,
sure.
Now, but with my question, if they were the signatory and did say something, do they have to give the money back?
They do, and there's usually what's called liquidated damages clauses,
and then some.
Right. So, I mean, it may be a $3 million settlement with confidentiality and an NDA and all of that, but there may also be liquidated damages saying,
but wait,
we're giving you.
Can any of this stick? Can any of this stick without the testimony from the females?
That's a good fucking question.
Yes, because the way this happens is, and I've had this happen before, where let's say I'm suing a local hospital here, and there have been all kinds of sexual harassment lawsuits and confidential settlements, and I bring a new one. Well, when we get into that nurse versus that doctor in the hospital, in my case, then there's got to be a lot of safeguards put in place, protection orders, and that kind of thing. Everything done under seal about that old case to let me get into it because it's relevant in my case. You know, if Raleigh General Hospital, for instance, settled a case of sexual harassment for Dr. So-and-so versus, then the plaintiff was a nurse, and then that's relevant to my case if I'm suing Dr. So-and-so in Raleigh General again for the same exact stuff. But you've got to put safeguards in place, protection orders.
Can they stay anonymous and still testify?
Yeah, we call our clients who are victims of sexual assault and sexual abuse a John Doe or Jane Doe. In the VA case that I had, where
but I'm assuming that yours didn't have NDAs though.
No, that's correct.
So the NDA lady can still she can testify.
She couldn't testify even anonymously if she had an NDA, right, Steve?
She could. And here's
She had to
here's
pay the
what
money back, right?
here's no,
Wow.
because NDAs say as permitted by law. So if she gets subpoenaed, let's say minority shareholders versus WWE, all right, and somebody who signed an NDA gets subpoenaed to come to a deposition. That is an exception to the NDA, but there will be a bunch of safeguards put in place that will allow her to testify under seal, under a protection order about everything that went on and not violate her NDA. Now, that will never be part of the public record. We'll never know it, but the testimony itself can go on.
Because what we're dealing with here is we just need, or they just need enough outside of a courtroom to force him out, right?
Well, I mean, they can. It depends on how receptive he is to, what's being presented and how it's being presented and that kind of thing. And that's going to be an interesting part of this is who sits down and has that talk with him. Does McDevitt sit down and have that talk? Or, is he called into a board meeting, where all of these things are laid out and they're like, look, we need to phase out your ownership of the majority shares of this company. We're going to buy those from you for X dollars and you're going to, we're going to buy you out.
If he's forced out in an authority role, does he have to give up his shares?
Well, that's what the lawsuits can seek. The lawsuits can seek different remedies, one of which is he's forced to give up his shares.
So does that mean that someone at that point can look at Vince McMahon and go, "You're fired"? Is that? I mean, does he keep his job with the WWE at that point? He loses his shares, he loses his position in the company, but he's still got a job?
I don't think so.
Okay, so
let's
fantasy book the front office real quick at the end of this video. We know for a fact, and I think I can talk for all of you all. I know I can talk for Derek on this. Man, when Triple H, and look, I'm not a Triple H mark, Brian is, but man, when Triple H had NXT, it was the second best and sometimes the best promotion. We kind of want Vince gone so Triple H can run shit, right? Derek, do you want that?
I do.
I kind of do, yeah. Like, and you said the second best. At one point in time, we were doing a different format show. I was pretty heavy on NXT, pushing it towards everybody. Like I watched it more regularly than I watched any other product. I would watch it live and watch other stuff recorded when I got time for it, but I made time for NXT at that time. Sami Zayn and Neville and Finn Balor,
Bailey
and Sasha at
Shinsuke Nakamura, Kevin Owens. I mean, there were so many.
It was on fire.
Yeah, it really was.
So we want Triple H to be running this shit, right?
I think that Triple H knows how to run a wrestling company. And I think Triple H has enough respect for the territories and old school wrestling that I don't know who is in Vince's head or if he's just completely old and out of touch, had his mind on other things or whatever. But the modern product leaves a lot to be desired that I think Triple H and a good room of bookers could get straightened out.
So just to clarify a little bit there, because Steve said something and it kind of hit with me. I don't know that Triple H could run a wrestling company, but I want him to have sole ownership of creative for this wrestling company. I don't know that he knows jack squat about any of the actual business side of it. I'm sure he knows a little bit just because he's been around for a little while now.
If Nick Khan's running the front office and Triple H is running creative, isn't your problem solved at that point, Derek?
100%.
Yeah,
man,
really,
dude,
there's not much fantasy book to do. I mean, as soon as you say fantasy book the front office, all you can think about is Triple H.
Triple H, he's gonna bring Shawn Michaels in to be his right hand man, dude. Like NXT was so hot. The dude Shinsuke Nakamura, I'm a huge Shinsuke Nakamura fan. He's not been used correctly in the WWE. Obviously, one of my top 4 matches of all time, not to fucking sound like a wrestling hipster, is Wrestle Kingdom 9 or 10. Him and Kota Ibushi is a goddamn. Is it 10? Of course, Derek Jones knows it's 10. It's the dude. You gotta watch. It used to be on YouTube, but they took it off. It's a goddamn the best match you've ever fucking seen. It's ridiculous. The best thing that Shinsuke Nakamura ever did was his first match with Sami Zayn in NXT. That match is a goddamn, despite what Uncle Dave says, that's a fucking 5-star classic. Like, but that goes to, we know Triple H knows his tapes. Triple H is a fucking wrestling fan. As much as I think that he wasn't the guy back when he was the guy, he was the guy that worked with the guy. The man knows wrestling. And that's what we need. He knows modern wrestling.
Creative with Nick Khan running the front office and taking care of the money and the Saudi deals and the Fox and the ESPN and the USA Network deals. They'll be just fine.
I still want to think that Vince McMahon can never be toppled. I don't know if that's going to be the case or not, but we have talked a good bit about it. And thank you, Stephen P. New, for enlightening us to the legal aspects of this entire situation. Stephen Barker, thank you so much. And Derek Jones, thank you so much. We are out of time now, but if you are listening on YouTube, make sure you click subscribe. Make sure you click the little bell so you can get the notifications. And if you are listening on any of our podcast platforms, please click subscribe to those as well. And we will be back right here on the House of Kayfabe.